Hello again, team. It's Jess or JashiiCorrin, and welcome back for my week 23 plan with me. Today I'll be setting up for the 1st through to the 7th of June. But before we get into that, as per usual, we're just going to have a look at how this week is going. So as you'll remember from my last weekly plan with me, for this week I had a section for each weekday, a space for a running task list, and a space to track my steps. Honestly, can't say I've been getting into my journal all that much this week, but I do quite like this layout and the amount of space it gives me for each day, so I think I'm going to do something similar but a little bit more decorative for the week coming. As per usual, any of the equipment I use in today's setup is linked in the description box below, but let's get into the time lapse. As I mentioned, for this week's layout I'm going with something a little more decorative, so instead of the steps tracker I'm having a decorative panel over here on the left. From first touch of the pen to final erasings, this layout took about 28 minutes, though as usual that doesn't include the time it took to sketch it out. Honestly, the sketching actually doesn't take very long. What really takes me the longest for these layouts is just thinking of an idea. In terms of the questions we had from last week's video though, our first one comes from Epicelo29, who asked if we were back at school already. So yes, Kiwi schools certainly are back at the moment. All of my students came back last Monday because that's when we were allowed to reopen. Being back certainly has been interesting, and there are definitely elements of remote teaching that I do miss. But it has been nice to have some face-to-face interaction with the students. Our next question comes from Joanna, who said, "Your colourful rectangles are so pretty. Is it because of your brush pens or your colouring technique?" So it's a bit of both of these things, and it's also probably because of the paper. I find on certain papers it's a lot easier to colour in and have a kind of consistent finish rather than the kind of streaky finish. Honestly, the best journal I've probably used for that would be the LT 1917 because the paper's coated. So I found that in that journal it was actually very easy to get a consistent finish. The outro and all of it is a little bit more difficult, but what I like to do is when I colour sections in, I'm quite careful to make sure that all of my strokes go in the same direction. And when I'm putting them in, I try my very best not to go over the last stroke when I put in the new one, if that makes sense. Sometimes when you put strokes next to each other and you have a little bit of overlap, you end up with a darker streak in that section, so I try to avoid that. It is also partially because of the pens, because I know with some pens, highlighters in particular, if you do a stroke you end up with kind of like an ink dump at the end of the stroke. But my Tombos don't seem to have that much of a problem with that. Hopefully that all made sense and was helpful, but that's how I get a fairly consistent looking colour. Our next question comes from Daphne, who asked, "Can you speak/understand any other languages besides English? Also, what's a language you would like to learn?" Well, if you count broken English and bad English, yeah, sure. But if you don't, then no. The only language that I can really understand is English, but there are parts of other languages I can understand. For instance, if you said bonjour, then I would know you were saying hello in French. If you said konnichiwa, I could understand that as well. And then I could quite quickly tell you je ne sais pas or wakarimasen. I studied both French and Japanese when I was in high school, but I do not remember a lot of them. In terms of a language I'd like to learn, I'd probably like to actually properly learn French or Japanese. I did actually buy a book to help me learn Japanese, but I have not gotten around to using it. I also think that Spanish would be a good one to learn, but other than ¿Dónde está la biblioteca?, don't really know a lot of Spanish. Our next question comes from Butterfly Nez, who asked, "What is the Bujo supply you could easily do without?" For me, it would be stickers, as I never want to put them down permanently. Well, first of all, yes, totally feel you on that. I get mad sticker anxiety. Anytime I put a sticker down, I'm thinking, oh god, what if I put it in the wrong place? Or what if I put it down this week and then in like 3 weeks' time, I'll actually have the perfect situation for that sticker? I know it's silly, like I buy the stickers to use them, but most of the time they just sit in my folder. I think one of the bullet journal supplies that I could truly do without was alphabet stamps. To clarify that a little bit, I don't mean all alphabet stamps, some of them totally worthwhile, but I bought a set of alphabet stamps that were essentially like foligraphy, but I can do foligraphy, so why would I use stamps to do the foligraphy? I did end up getting rid of those, so yes, I am certainly doing without them. So really I'd have to say it would be alphabet stamps for styles of lettering that I can already do. Having a set of alphabet stamps for something like a typewriter font would be really cool, but photography was not one that I needed. Our next question comes from Laura, who asked, do you have a favourite colour or animal? So my top 3 favourite colours in order would have to be purple, green and silver. In terms of favourite animal, I know it's going to sound silly, but my favourite animal is a snail. In particular, like those little baby snails, because they're so small. And they're just like going about, doing their thing, eating the leaves, leaving their tiny snail trails. I just think they're cute. Thank you to all of our inquirers from last week, and as always, if you have a question, please do leave it in the comment section so I can answer it in next week's video. For my question to you guys, I'd like to go back to Butterfly Nez's one, and would ask, for my question for you guys, last week we talked about favourite bullet journal supplies, so I'd like to throw back to Butterfly Nez's question and ask, what is the one bullet journal supply you could easily go without? Ideally something you've bought or received and since decided isn't really for you. But I'm also interested to hear about any of the journaling supplies you've gone without buying because you already know that they wouldn't work. Alrighty, so as you can see we have a space for each day of the week and a space for a running task list, just like the current week. But instead of the steps tracker, I have this decorative space over here. Without the decoration, it's actually a fairly simple layout, but I quite like the visual of this one. Thank you for watching, team. If you liked today's video, please do make sure to give it a big thumbs up, and if you wanted to see more from me, feel free to go check out one of my other videos. Until next time, bye!